Hi everyone, welcome to Tech and Talk. Today we are going to extend the same discussion that we had last time on MapCat method. But before that, let me clean that file a bit. I want to add region just to make sure that all those separate request types are managed inside those regions. Alright, and I can copy this one just to reuse that one. Okay. So we have demoed all those requests last time that I encapsulated in that region. So today I will start with the query param discussion again. So last time we have seen that if we let's say put a variable here inside that function, and let's say I want to pass an ID, and I can just pass that ID as a query param from that call. Let's say I just utilize that call and I say that should be get, and I want to pass an ID is equal to 1, and as soon as I hit that button I will get those two records as a response. Alright, so what I can do is I can just add where, and I can check where ID is equal to the ID I am passing. By the way, those params are case insensitive. As you can see, it's lowercase, and from here you can see it's camel case, so that doesn't matter. Alright, now I am getting the one record, and if I change that 1 to 2 and I run that query, now I am getting second object from that array or list. Alright, that was one thing. The second thing is we can restrict or we can force that ID to be passed as query param. How? Just by applying attribute which is from query. We want that ID to be passed from query whatsoever. So nothing will change as an output, but it will force that ID from that query param. So that was second thing. Third thing, how we can pass a complex object as a parameter. So for that one, we need to change that simple data type into something complex, which I can use that record as an example. So let's say I want to pass user and want to pass that from query param. I will use that user, and I can say user.id. It should be the ID of that user, and I can also say and x dot name of the user should be equals to name of the passing user. Alright, and in that complex data type case, that from query will not work straight away. For that one, I need to change that one to as parameters. Alright, now I can pass all the properties of that user class as query params, and those will be mapped from the framework, and I will receive those values here. So if I put a debug point here and I just run the application, and let's try to pass the values. First was the ID and the second was the and how we can pass, we can separate them by and symbol, and I can say name is equal to Salman, and if I hit now and if I step into the call, now you can see ID is 2 and name is equal to Salman, and if you see the response, we should have 2 and Salman from that endpoint. So this is how we can pass a simple data type or a complex data type through mapCat function as a query param, and we can enforce those values to be coming from query param just by using from query with simple data type and as parameters with complex data type. So this was the first topic for today, and from this one we pretty much cover all the basis of get endpoint in specifically context of minimal APIs. So now let's jump into how we can use the map post endpoint. So for that one, I would like to move that into that get region, and you should know that region is nothing just a logical separation of the code. Alright, so now I want to add a region which should be post requests, and I want to end region as well. Alright, now let's try to add our first HTTP post endpoint in that minimal API today. For that one, I will be using app.map post, and I would like to name it users endpoint and an empty delegate, which should be fine. Alright, so this is let's say I just want to return a new user with idea one and name, let's say techintalk, and let's try to hit that endpoint now. Let me stop the debugging and let me rerun the application, and for that one I will be reusing that call, and I can call it this should be post, and I want to post that users endpoint. Yeah, as soon as I click that one, you can see that I'm now getting response that ID is one and name is techintalk. So second thing would be how we can pass body to that map post endpoint or call. For that one, let's say I'm passing user object and I am returning same user object from that call. And by the way, how we can return the object without serializing that one into JSON object, because by default these map post methods have that JSON.text library implemented on those responses. So if we pass the object, it will be automatically serialized into JSON form, and if you pass plain string or simple data type, it will remain as it is. So now we are passing an object, and we know that whenever we are making the post request, we are passing those values from the body of that request. So we should tag it, or we should use attribute from body this way. Okay, now we have a single HTTP post call which is receiving a user object and returning that as it is. And for the endpoint perspective, we have to now mention the content type, and that should be application / JSON, and we should give a space, horizontal space, and we can pass our object. The first attribute of that user object is ID. We are passing font and name. Let's say we pass post test as a name. Alright, so let me run this endpoint, which means we haven't restarted the application. Let me restart this one, and now if I pass that one, now you can see the response is post test coming. So if I change the ID from 1 to 10 and I hit that one again, you can see the ID is now 10, and we are getting post test from that endpoint. And why I said so that we should have a space, if you remove that space and try to call that one, you will get a error, because this is passing as a header value. It's considering whole those characters as a content type value. So to separate that out, we should have a horizontal space, vertical space, and we can pass the body then after that space, that line break. So this is how we can implement a simple HTTP post endpoint through those minimal APIs. So that was all for today's video. In case of any question, you do ask me in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed my channel, do make sure to subscribe and keep coding.